Most of the preserve is managed sort of with golden cheek warbler in mind, but we've got this kind of nice old field meadow that we're trying to push back to native grasses. That's the overarching objective for today. Of course, in addition to resource objectives, we want to provide for firefighter and public safety. And, you know, just kind of big picture, we're trying to reintroduce fire as a natural part of the ecosystem in this part of the county. You know, as a secondary objective, we're also trying to reduce fuel loading with an eye towards this year's fire season. And with that, the specifics are we would like to burn 90% of the open area of the grassland habitat. So we're targeting 90% burn on that field. This is all with a goal towards increasing native species diversity within 2 years post-burn and reducing KR cover as a percentage of the overall mix.
I am taking down the hourly weather as it's recorded. This helps us predict what our fire behavior is going to be like when it starts and as we continue through the day. And then we'll report it every hour on the hour. And that'll help us keep track of whether it's escalating, the weather behavior, and what we need to anticipate as that continues.
Or eastern Travis County into Bastrop into the Post Oak Savannah region that goes all through central Texas. We have dozens of different types of oaks, of elms, of yaupon, of you know, just all these different types of trees, hickories, and we have post oak thickets. It's supposed to be more open than it is now. It's a thicket right now.
Gilman towel.
Short towel.
Yeah, we got fire on the ground at the new restroom.
At 1400, the winds are south-southeast, 2 to 7.5 miles an hour. The relative humidity is 59.5. The wet bulb is 78.6. Temperature is 92.4. Our heat index is 99.4. Probability of ignition remains at 40%, and the barometric pressure has dropped slightly to 29.6. Weather out.
It's interesting to see how different it burns in the shade versus the sun due to how much moisture is in the plants and just what type of plants grow in those locations. Ash juniper is a native invasive species, meaning that it grew here naturally, but not nearly as much as it used to. It was controlled by fire. So right now we're replicating the role of Mother Nature. We're going to come through here and these will most likely be consumed, which is a good thing. It'll let our live oak continue to be healthy and our grasses continue to be healthy.
And Marshall, once the stuck's in, I'm going to have you take it to the next drop point.
Your battery low?
Angie, what do you have for torch fuel?
Yeah, I got you.
Can you swap out with you?
Historically, areas around central Texas would have burned every 3 to 5 years. In these flat areas, the fires would have been very fast and very hot in the summertime, typically. So it would have killed off any shrubs, young trees, and that's why the area is called savanna, right? So it had sparse tree populations, but mostly grass. Along the hillsides, when the fire would creep up the hill, even though we know fire burns hotter uphill, because it's so rocky, there isn't continuous fuel to carry that fire. So juniper would have mainly been on the hillsides historically. So we know that those were there and that's natural, but down in the bottoms where it would have been mostly grass, where fires could have burned very, very hot and very fast, it's not natural to have as high a population of juniper and mesquite and even other trees that are native. You can tell where the water sits. So right, water goes downhill but then it goes uphill again. So the fire reached this little bottom, and naturally that's a wetter area because more water sat there from whatever last rainstorm we got. So you can tell exactly where the soil and the vegetation is just maybe a teensy bit wetter.
Okay, we've turned the corner at drop point 1.
As I was looking at this area earlier, and the duffer was kind of just smoldering. I came back an hour later, and the wind had picked up, and it had started to do about 2-inch flame lengths on it. So right now, Cody's using the back of his hand to check for any more hot spots deep in the duff layer that may reignite later as the relative humidity drops, or as temperatures rise, or as wind picks up. It's easy to see how like a small duffer in these little layers can eventually reignite an entire fire throughout the passage of a day. And that's not uncommon on these burns, so it's why we do mop up for up to 2 to 3 days after the fire itself. So on this property, which is Golden Cheek Warbler Sanctuary, the larger old growth cedars are wanted. So we did a lot of protection to try to keep from igniting these particular cedars on this burn. Whereas on other burns, our goal is to ignite them and try to do cedar fuel or cedar tree reduction. So it just depends on if it's a habitat for a certain species, or if we're trying to get it back to true grasslands, which is immediately adjacent to us. So we've got 2 ecosystems here. We've got the grasslands on one side, and we've got the Golden Cheek Warbler habitat on the other side. So it's kind of interesting having 3 different field types on a single burn.